Hey class, happy Friday. Hope everyone's doing well. All right, so we're going to kind of wrap up this week with a kind of a review of factoring trinomials. All right, and after the notes today, you guys will just do a little quizzes to, practice factoring trinomials. All right, and next week, be on the lookout for a quiz next week. So let's do a little reviewing today. And then again, we'll review next week on both factoring trinomials and factoring with the GCF. And next Friday, we'll have a little quiz. All right. So here we go. Let's look at this warm up, kind of this worked example here. All right. So in this worked example, right, we have x squared minus 4x minus 21. All right. And look at this note here about looking carefully at the signs. All right. The signs are going to be very important to figure out which factors we are going to use. All right. So again, these are kind of like the two steps here, right? You want to find the factors of that last term, your C value that adds to that middle term, or your B value. And again, your solution will be the result in the product of two binomials, all right? So we're always going to have these two sets of parentheses, all right? And two binomials I'll multiply to get back to our original expression. All right, so again, in this worked example, right, I have x squared minus 4x minus 21. All right, so I'm looking for factors of negative 21 that add to negative 4. Okay, so we want to be sure, again, right, if we don't know all the factors that we are looking in this week 5 folder, right, and having that factors chart out and available to us. All right, and today I'm going to try a little something different when we fill out this chart, or when we fill out the notes here, okay? So when we find that number 21, all right, so you can see my factors are 1 and 21 and 3 and 7. All right, so maybe for today's lesson, instead of writing each and every single pair, all right, maybe we can just focus in on the two numbers, the two pairs that could get us close to that number that we wanted to add to. All right, so maybe instead of writing that 1 and 21, right, we can just write that 3 and 7, but use both combinations here because we want to make sure we add up to the correct number in the middle. All right, so and once we find that number, right, once we know that it's 3 and negative 7 is the pair that we're going to use because they add to negative 4, right, and that's what you're going to put back into your solution, right? That's how we get x plus 3 times x minus 7. All right, so now let's do some examples together, all right? So again, we want to find factors of 24 here, right, that add to 11, right? And this is all positive, all right? So this is the one where it's just going to be positive, 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 right? So I don't have to worry about negatives and stuff like that, all right? I'm just going to be looking for positive factors of 24 that add to 11. All right, so I'm going to look at my chart here and find the number 24, right? So look at all the different combinations here, right? I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6, okay? So most likely it's going to be this 3 plus 8 is what's going to give me 11, all right? So when you're filling out the chart today, all right, so maybe we can just focus on putting in the numbers that are going to give us that 11, right? So which is going to be 3 and 8, we'll add up to 11. So that means my solution is going to be x plus 3 times x plus 8. All right, but if you find it more helpful to list out all the factors, go ahead and do that. But I'm just trying to save you guys a little bit of time here, right? All right, so let's look at example 2. All right, example 2, we have x squared plus 8x plus 16. All right, so we want to find factors of 16 that add to 8. All right, so factors of 16 that add to 8. All right, so again, I'm going to reference my factors chart. All right, so I'm going to find factors of 16. All right, so 1 and 16, 2 and 8, and 4 and 4. All right, so I think that 4 and 4 is going to add up to that 8. All right, so then I'm going to put in on my factors chart here, or sorry, my little T chart here, right, 4 plus 4, right, because 4 times 4 gives me 16, and 4 plus 4 will add up to my 8. All right, so now I'm ready for my solution here. It's going to be x plus 4 times x plus 4. All right, and those are going to be the positive ones, right? When everything's positive, right, it's not too bad because we're just going to find the numbers that add up. All right, so these next couple examples, all right, this is where the signs are going to be negatives. All right, so this is going to involve a little more thinking, all right, and a little more playing with the numbers here. All right, but again, we're going to start off the same way by finding factors of negative 17. All right, but this time I got these factors of, sorry, whoop, that's not correct. I need to find factors of negative 38. That sounds better. That add to a negative 17. All right, so again, I'm going to look at my factors chart here and find that number 38. And there it is, right? I only have two sets of factors for 38. I have 1 and 38 or 2 and 19. But I need to get to a negative 17. Well, there's no way a 1 and 38 will do it. So it's going to be that 2 and 19. All right. So now I'm going to list out that 2 and 19 twice. All right. And because one of these have to be negative in order for them to multiply to negative 38. All right. So this negative 2 can be negative, or this 19 can be negative in this pair. All right. So now that I just listed out my duplicate pairs, all right, which one of these adds up to negative 17? Well, when I punch these into my calculator, right, this 2 and negative 19 is going to give me that negative 17. All right, because again, if I want them to add to a negative number, my bigger number needs to be that negative. All right, so now my solution I can say is x plus 2 times x minus 19. All right, and our next example here, we have, right, x squared plus 4x minus 32. So again, I got to find factors of negative 32 that add to a positive 4. So I'm looking for factors of negative 32 that add to a positive 4. All right, so again, I'm going to reference this factors chart. All right, so I'm going to find that number 32, all right, which is right here. So I have 1 and 32, 2 and 16, and 4 and 8. All right, but I got to get that combo that gets me to 4. All right, well, 2 and 16 will never get me to a 4. A 1 and 32 will never get me to a 4. So it's just going to be that 4 and 8 combination there. All right, so now when I fill out this chart, I'm going to have 4 and 8. And I'm going to have another 4 and 8. All right, because again, they have to multiply to a negative. So I'm going to list these out twice, all right, because it could be this 4 that's negative, or it could be this 8 that's negative. All right, so if I add negative 4 plus 8, that's going to give me my positive 4. So that's the pair I'm going to use. All right, if I added up 4 and negative 8, that would give me a negative 4, but that's not what I'm looking for because I need them to add to a positive. All right, so now that I know the correct pair, now I'm ready to finish factoring this problem by putting it back into my binomials, right? So I get x minus 4 times x plus 8 is my factored solution. All right, let's try 2 more. All right, but this time, if you notice, I didn't put a chart here. All right, that's because I want you guys to practice making your own chart, okay? Especially if you're not able to print these out, right? It's kind of a little bit harder to do these problems, all right? But again, you can just make a simple t-chart, all right? And I want to find numbers that multiply on this side and numbers that add to this side. All right, so I want to find numbers that multiply to 12, but add to a negative 13. Okay, so again, if we remember this one, right, if they're going to add up to a negative but multiply the positive, both of these signs need to be negative. All right, so let's look at my factors of 12. All right, I'm going to scroll up and find 12. All right, so I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. And out of those 3 sets of numbers, they have to add to a negative 13. Well, the only one that kind of makes sense is going to be that 1 and 12. All right, so 1 and 12, but again, they have to add to a negative. That means they both have to be negative, right? Because a negative times a negative gives me that positive. All right, so now I'm ready to write my solution in. All right, so again, it's going to be two sets of parentheses, right? Two binomials that multiply to get back to my original trinomial expression. So now it's going to be x minus 1 times x minus 12. And that's going to be my factored solution. All right, we got one more last one here. All right, why don't you guys try this on your own, and let's see what you get. All right, so again, we're going to start by making a little t-chart here. All right, just a simple little t-chart like this. And on the left side, it's going to multiply to 40. And on the right side, it's going to add to negative 13. All right, so we're going to multiply to positive 40, but add to a negative 13, right? And the only way two numbers can multiply to a positive and add to a negative if they are both negative. All right, so let's look at our factors chart. All right, we're going to find that number 40. Which is going to be here at the bottom. All right, so now I'm going to look at my factors of 40, right? 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. All right, so I can automatically throw out these 1 and 40 and 2 and 20, right? Because there's no way I can get to a 13 with those numbers, right? Maybe the 4 and 10, or maybe the 5 and the 8, right? Well, if I add 4 plus 10, that's 14. So that's not going to work, right? So it's just going to be that 5 and 8 combination here. All right, so I'm going to write those two numbers on my line here, right? And because they have to multiply to a positive and add to a negative, right? I don't have to list it twice, right? I just know that these are both going to be negative, right? Because that's the only way that I can multiply to a positive and add to a negative if both of my values are negative. All right, so now I'm ready to write my solution. Right, so I can automatically set up my two sets of parentheses because I have two binomials. And I'm going to get x minus 5 times x minus 8. All right, so again, hopefully this review helped out. It's making a little more sense. All right, the homework that's been coming in is looking really good. So keep it up. And now you guys are ready to do a little practice with that quizzes.